Introducing God's Plan. Chapter 7. From the Wilderness to the Promised Land. The people of Israel were no longer slaves in Egypt. They wandered in the wilderness outside Egypt with Moses as their leader. God told Moses what to do, and Moses obeyed him. God gave the people of Israel a sign to follow. By day there was a pillar of cloud in front of them which they followed, and by night there was a pillar of fire. Because they had this clear sign from God, they could never lose their way in the wilderness. After a while, the people became thirsty and they complained they had no water. And so God led them to a lake and to some wells in the desert where they could drink as much as they liked. And then the people became hungry and they complained that they had no food. They wished they were back in Egypt, as they always had food to eat there. Although they were so ungrateful for their freedom, God decided to send them food, for they were his people and he wouldn't let them starve. That evening he sent them birds called quail to eat, and every morning he sent an unusual type of food called manna. It was very good to eat and it tasted delicious. So from that time onwards, they were never hungry again. Now, in all we've heard so far, God has always spoken to certain people on the earth and told them what to do, and they have led the others. When Moses was in the wilderness with the people of Israel, God gave them a set of rules to obey from that time onwards. They would then always know what they should do and what they shouldn't do. And then God would no longer have to speak through a particular person like Moses and tell them what to do. And so God called Moses to meet and talk with him on a mountain called Sinai. None of the other people of Israel were allowed to go up the mountain, and so Moses went alone and God spoke to him there. God gave Moses 10 basic rules which are known as the 10 Commandments. They were very sensible rules, and Moses knew they were good because God had given them to him. And God also gave him many other rules which all the people of Israel should follow. Moses remembered them all, and so that he could tell the others when he came down from the mountain. These rules were known as the law. When God had finished giving Moses the 10 Commandments and all the other rules, Moses came down from the mountain. He told the people all the Lord had said to him, and the people answered, "Everything the Lord has said we will do." And then Moses wrote down all the rules that the Lord had given him. After that, God called Moses away, again to tell him more about what he wanted his people to do. Moses left the people of Israel, and once again he went up the mountain to meet and talk with God. And this time he was away for 40 days and 40 nights. God gave him many details of a special tent, known as a tabernacle, which Moses was to build. This tabernacle was to be a holy place. The word holy means something or somebody that is separated to God. God gave Moses many more details about what the priests should wear and what should be kept in the tabernacle, and on which days the people of Israel should perform certain ceremonies and worship God. God spent many days telling Moses what he and his people should do and how they should live. And he also gave Moses 2 tablets of stone on which he had written the 10 Commandments. And when Moses returned to the people, he took them with him. Meanwhile, some of the people of Israel, without Moses there, began to turn away from God. They did not follow the new rules and regulations that God had given them, and their behaviour grew worse and worse, so that when Moses came down from the mountain, he was very angry with what he saw. He threw the stone tablets to the ground and broke them in pieces. These people had made a golden calf and were worshipping it instead of God. All the people who were doing this were killed by the faithful ones, and a fresh start was then made. The people who were left once more tried to keep the laws which God had given to them. God told Moses to bring 2 new stone tablets and go up Mount Sinai to him again. And so Moses spent another 40 days and 40 nights on the mountain and wrote down all that God had said. And when he returned this time, the people listened to all the Lord's commands and saw the tablets on which he had written the 10 Commandments. And so God continued to lead his people through the wilderness by the pillar of cloud by day and the pillar of fire by night. And he led them in their lives by asking them to obey the 10 Commandments and all the other rules he'd given Moses on the mountain. Finally, the people of Israel reached the promised land. This was the land that God had promised many, many years ago to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He promised that the people of Israel would have a land and a home of their own. However, there were foreign tribes living in the land, and the people of Israel were afraid to enter it, because the people of these tribes were very big, and they were also very good warriors. Some men from Israel were chosen to go into the promised land to see what it was like. They came back with reports that it was an excellent land, flowing with milk and honey. Everything grew well there, and there was plenty to eat and drink. However, they also told the people about the large and fierce men living in the land. And so the people of Israel were afraid and didn't believe God when he told them he would be with them and help them to fight the fierce tribes there and to win the battles. Only 2 of the men who had been sent to spy out the land had enough faith in God to believe that he would help them fight their battles. And these 2 men were Caleb and Joshua. God was angry with the people because they did not believe his words, and so he punished them. He said he would let them continue to wander in the wilderness until all those who did not believe died. He would let only their children enter into the promised land, together with Joshua and Caleb, because all the others had disbelieved. And so the people of Israel were turned by God back into the wilderness until all the disbelieving people had died. And after 40 years of wandering in the wilderness, all their children had grown up. And finally, they arrived back to the borders of the promised land. And it was here, on a high mountain at the edge of the land, that Moses died. He saw the land from this mountain, but he never actually entered into it. And so Joshua and Caleb were the only 2 men who led the people of Israel into the promised land. God was with the people, so they easily overcame the fierce tribes living there, and at last God's promise had been fulfilled. The people of Israel were now in the land called Palestine, the land which had been promised to them so long ago when Abraham was alive. Although the people of Israel had often disbelieved God and kept turning back to wicked ways, God remained faithful and kept his promise. He brought them to the land he had promised. God always keeps his promises to people, even if they do wrong, for God is faithful and true to his word.